Hola.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Now from Egypt here with Mateja. So for those who doesn't remember, um, Mateja was the person that has been replacing me during all this time that I wasn't here in Egypt, that I was in Spain. So since the very first moment until today, she was taking my place in the pyramid. How was it?
Every day was different. It was amazing.
Is there any experience you want to share or anything that you want to tell to everybody about? Can be whatever.
Well, it's pretty amazing to be able to be alone inside the pyramid, that's for sure. It's pretty amazing to be inside the Great Pyramid alone because I was lucky, and most of the times, almost every day, I was able to be early there in the morning and I was completely alone inside. So there was a lot, like I reported to Matthias every day by voice messages, so he knows everything. And a lot of times things that happened inside were so abstract that it was really hard to put into the words too. But the thing that I did, like the basic thing I always did, was to become the earth, to connect with the axis and then with the whole grid, the earth grid. So, and then from there on, like I said, it was incredible. Every day was different. There is nothing I could really point out, but many incredible things. Some people were asking if I was singing. Yes, all the time. And also dancing. And I did whatever. Whatever was needed, basically. Whatever came. There were a lot of informations coming as well, so I just allowed that and reported to Matthias. So that's it. Basically, it was amazing. I didn't expect to be here 1 month, and I was.
So one of the good things that you will remember about the staying of Mateo here were the great pictures, the amazing pictures that she took during her stay here. So from now on, just forget about it because I came back and you will have the same horrible pictures, but taken without magic. So, okay.
Yes, just one more thing. Thank you for all the messages that you were and comments that I was receiving. So thank you so much to everyone.
So she in 3 hours she leaves, goes back to Slovenia.
But I come back.
Just to remind you also that she's coming back because in 10 days we will have here 144 people, and Mateja with Judith and me, we will be doing the works with the people during the stay in the end of the month.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
See you in one way or another soon.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Hola.
Hola.
Hola a todos. Hi, everyone. So sorry that all this week I didn't post any pictures, didn't post anything, but in Spain we had, how to say, shire, how to say? Lockdown. So we couldn't move around in Spain. So we have to be locked at home. So I hadn't many things. So that's why today when we woke up, we just went all around and it was like this barfing of photographs today, so that I posted just to let you know that I am here, that I came back. I'm in Egypt. So let's go to begin with today's topic, which is the third dimension. So what to explain about the third dimension? Basically, that is this one. So this is the third dimension, and this is it. So I guess that you all know the third dimension. You all had experienced the third dimension. So besides being simple because it's what we know, of course, that for the universe, everything that is so simple has to be complicated. So that's why we are going to try to understand the third dimension. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So to restart with this idea, a dot or a line is what describes the first dimension. So the first dimension can be seen like this, like a dot or a line, because basically this dot is the beginning or the end of one line. So if you put this line in front like this, you will see a dot. So basically you can see it this way. So one extreme of the first dimension is the alpha and the other extreme is the omega. So if we just take one dot, we will see this here, cutting the hemisphere, having alpha in one side and the omega in the other side. Okay, so that would be like kind of the two positive and negative of the first dimension. Sorry. Okay. Entonces, bien. Bueno, vamos entonces a, si esta es la primera dimensión, so let's go into this. If this is the first dimension, so if this here is the first dimension, the second dimension will be this. So this line here is the first dimension, but then the second dimension will be the forms, the shapes, will be the figures of the things, is the planification of the things. Okay. So that here would be a square, which is the basis of other creations after that. And then we have the third dimension, which will be seen in this way. Now it's better. So the third dimension, what is going to be? The depth. So here we have height. How do you write this? Height? Height.
Height.
Height. Okay. Height.
H. White.
White. Sorry, I had problems today with the English. Yes. What? Okay, so we can say that, for example, the first dimension will be the height, the second dimension will be the weight, and the third dimension will be the depth. So remember, as I explained the first day of Pisces, the dimensions are not different places that you can find separated, like 1, 2, and 3 separated from each other. The dimensions are only one thing that are measured from different point of views. Okay, so this is 3 dimensions. 1 dimension here, 2 dimensions here, 3 dimensions there. They are not places, they are measures. So as we have here the first dimension and the second dimension, they are measurements of something that exists. But until the depth doesn't exist, there is no object, there is only measurement. So depth, it's also the word for profound. Okay, is the same word. So profound profound comes from the Latin going into the depth, going into the deepest part. That's the meaning. So how do we get the depth? We get it by the fractalization of the second dimension. When the second dimension fractalizes itself, we get the depth. Sometimes many of us in school had experienced a teacher of drawing that teach you how to make the depth in a drawing. I don't know in English the name, but it's
vanishing point.
Vanishing point. Okay, thank you. The vanishing point of a drawing. Okay, so it's useful to talk about the perspective of the things. So the vanishing point basically would be the fractalization of the second dimension. The vanish point, it can be in the center or whatever. We can put it here in the middle of this place. What I'm going to do to connect the perspectives is to connect this dot with the vertices of the square. And now what I'm going to do is to fractalize the cube to go towards the place, the dot. Do you have the image? Suddenly a cube became like a portal. You can put a little bit of shadow. Okay. So the only thing that we just did was to fractalize the structure of a square towards a dot. So the first dimension and the second dimension got united to create the third dimension. And this is the way in which you can draw something with depth, with something that is profound. So, drawing class. So from where the third dimension comes from an imaginary illusion. It's an optic illusion. So you have here one fractal, another one here, another one here, another one, and bigger. Okay. So here with this auric structure, we can also see how the fractals starts to make this illusion, this idea of depth in the reality, creating the third dimension. So we can create more and more and more, and this will give us an idea of depth. Por fractalidad, by fractalization. So what this is saying to us is that everything that creates by fractalization is an illusion. Let's go back to the most easier fractal of all. In the first dimension, we have one pole, one axis in positive and negative, and we add another two to create in the second dimension the image of a triangle. So to make a fractal, let's make another vanishing point. So let's connect the axis. So now we have a tetrahedron. First dimension, the line. Second dimension, the triangle. Third dimension, the tetrahedron. Okay. So we can create new points of vanishing points. Okay. So we will have again the same structure inside. We can also connect it like this through different vanishing points. So what I just done here is to connect the same dots to expand into a new one. So this is a fractalization. Okay, a fractalization is to create once and again the same structure. Once and again. Okay. A fractalization is a fraction of one whole, of one part. So this here is like a fraction of the whole. That's a fractalization. So it's when you say 2/3, for example. Okay. What do you know that is like this? What do you know like this that has a negative and a positive, and a third one that just appears to give meaning and sense to these other two? Electron, proton, neutron. So mostly the basic structure. The basic structure of what? Of matter. So this one got united, and this one here spins all the time. So we have another Trinity that, for example, is one oxygen and two hydrogen. Water. And we also have this. And the structure here that will shape carbon. So when we start to replicate this structure, we have the base of life, which is the carbon. and here we have water. So as you see, the basis of everything is just positive and negative, connected, positive and negative connected, and they create a figure, and that figure, when it fractalizes, starts to create a shape. A form, depth. So what is matter? Matter is basically an illusion that is fractalized. So as we have said some other times, what are we? We are an illusion, a hologram of an illusion that has been fractalized. So basically, the third dimension is a distortion, a constant distortion of the second dimension. So this means that the third dimension is a hologram projected from the second dimension. Being the second dimension, this mind that is creating figures, concepts, trying to get a pattern of this concept, and you start to go deeper and deeper. The mind starts to find different probabilities, different ways to understand this figure. So it starts to fractalize it much and more and more and more and more. And suddenly it's going deep and deep and deep, creating this concept of matter, this concept of the third dimension. And what is this third dimension? Is the tool that the universal mind has in order to experience this depth, these deep concepts and figures. The third dimension basically is where the mind practices, learn, where the mind is trying to understand itself, to play. Sometimes what we used to say is that a higher being from another dimension, like a spiritual being from the seventh, the sixth dimension, they come to the third dimension and they got in the third dimension in order to be born. Like this idea of a spirit or a spirit or a soul that are going to live in the matter. But it's not exactly like this. So this is a figure that is made up with lines. So when these lines become connected in depth, they become an object. So this is an object now. So when I got this figure and I made the depth creating the object, so I create an object, which is also a thing. An object is a thing. So in Latin, thing is res. Res. So res, the attribute of something, the attribute of a thing is al. So real, real. Real means the attribute of a thing. That's the meaning of real. So basically, this means that when we have a thing made up with figures, we consider that real. And we have 2 points of view, the physical one or the psychical one. The physical one is the one that you can perceive with the senses. The psychical one is the one you perceive with the concepts of the senses. So the physical is based on the physical is based on the feelings, on the senses to perceive the things, and the psychological is about the concepts that you got experiencing the physicals, and both of them are the ones that you call real. So this is why reality, something real, can only be explained through subjective concepts, because it's only explained through the perception of my senses and the perception of the concepts of those senses. We usually say reality is those things that you can touch, that you can touch, that you can see, for example, but it's not the reality, because what you see is basically the photons making a reaction in your eye that is interpreted by the electrical pulses of your brain. And when you touch something, you have never touched anything, because what the sensation of touching something is basically the electrons of both objects trying to not to cross each other. So the magnetical field is so hard that it's pushing so you don't touch the other electron. So logically, you have never touched or seen anything. This is why we can say that reality, from the point of view of physical and psychical, is just an illusion. Illusion comes from luso, that means game, to play. So we come back to the concept that the mind is playing. It's playing a game that we perceive as reality, and that's the dream. The dream is the reality. The reality is a dream. So when we speak about the third dimension, we should not think that this dimension is separated from others. This dimension is connected, is because of others. Without the other dimensions, there is no depth, there is no third dimension. So the third dimension is a need of the other dimensions to be experienced. So the third dimension is basically the need of the spiritual world to be known. And in order to be known, it needs to know itself deeper and deeper. So as you see here, the first dimension and the second dimension are part of the third dimension. So the divine and the spiritual are fundamental parts of the physical. So in order for the divine and the spiritual to leave the physical, this point has to do the next. It projects itself in the opposite, creating a new fractalization in that wall, creating a new structure. It projects outside, creating a new structure. So the way in which this divine and spiritual goes into that side is like if someone from that side pulls this note here going out there, and it bends everything, like going blop and coming again out. That's why I compare this like turning a sock. So when you just, let's do it practical. Tiene tierra. It has earth, dust. So here we have a spiritual being that wants to become a human being. So it's not coming a spiritual being and get inside here to make a human. No. So that's how a human appears. Okay. I think that now you got it. Better than this. So we usually can think that we have third dimension, fourth dimension, and fifth dimension. What we usually believe is that the spirit comes from the fifth dimension, goes inside a soul in the fourth dimension, and gets inside a body in the third dimension. This is why we usually think that in order to get to the fifth dimension, we have to go through the fourth dimension and we have to leave the third dimension. So that's why we say I get out of the third dimension in order to go to the fifth dimension. This basically doesn't exist. And that's what we know as Taurus. So it's only one being, the Taurus, that is doing that from different many directions. Okay? That takes this energy and pushes there and blop, emerges and goes back and creates another one in each one of the nodes and starts to reproduce. So this is how all the dimensions work. So what we can understand about the third dimension is that the third dimension is the sensitive, the sensorial aspect, feeling of all the dimensions. So this means that the third dimension is the only aspect of the reality where all the other dimensions can experience its own creation. So as you have seen here, it's not a being there that creates this reality for us to experience this. It's ourselves in other realities that bend the time and space to create us so we can experience this. So that's why the third dimension is the fruit of all this creation. And if we don't live plainly the third dimension, we are not going to be able to transcend into other dimensions. Because the only way in which a being from other dimension can become someone in a different dimension is if all the entire being is resounding perfectly in harmony in that dimension. That's why we have to learn how to love the third dimension. We have to learn how to enjoy the five senses, to learn how to enjoy the reality. As much I enjoy this reality, much more I will perceive the other realities. And the way in which I am fully aware of this is if I enjoy life being coherent in between what I think, what I feel, what I do. Otherwise, I will be only experiencing pleasure in one of the three. So to feel full is to be coherent. So when we think that the fifth dimension is coming and we have to go to the fifth dimension, it's a religious thought. It's something that we inherit from the monotheistic cultures, that they were expecting for a savior, that they were expecting for a heaven, a paradise, because they are suffering this reality and they don't like this reality because we are trapped in this reality and this is like a punishment. And this is not a punishment. This is an experience. So if we live like that, we will suffer that. the idea of the fifth dimension and the age of Aquarius being this paradise is something created in the 60s, basically, that projected that idea of Aquarius age and the fifth dimension being like this paradise of beautiful things. And it's not. It won't be like that. The fifth dimension is not like that. Aquarius time won't be like that. So if we don't start to enjoy the third dimension and to live fully the third dimension, we will still suffer the third dimension. So as I wrote today, as the poet Calderón de la Barca said, enjoy life. I say this, enjoy life, because life is a dream and the dreams are dreams. So let's go to the alignment. The vibration for today is Le. The statement for today is I am real love. The code for today is to be born. Related with the expression of the universe and spring on earth, all living beings go through this process of the four universal foundations that start on the stage of life that we call being born. It starts in the moment when the spermatozoid and the ovule, the egg, unite, and continues until the seventh year. When the chakras have properly formed in all the physical and psychical systems. Remember that the mantra for this month is I believe. The mantra for today is I believe, because remember that the belief is related with the love I have for the things. Sit comfortable, close your eyes, and concentrate in your breathing. I take a deep breath and I become aware of the body and the space I find myself in. I take a deep breath and I start to imagine how I push the walls, the roof, and the floor of this room I find myself in, expanding it in every direction, opening it towards the infinite. expanding the space, filling the void of the universe. In this space, I feel levitating, calm, in harmony, like in a dream. I start to use my imagination to bring back all the things that I am attached to, physical things of my life, not only now, but since I was a child. All the objects from home, toys, games, clothes, art. Electronic devices, books, pictures. And I recognize that this attachment is not negative. This is the link of love that I feel or felt for each one of them. I take all these objects I feel love for. I feel good memories of them, and I put them all inside the house of my dreams, the place where I feel at home. Imagine that house fill up with all these things, and I see with my imagination how this huge black space turns into this beautiful sightseeing, the place of my dreams. I walk around the house, enjoying the space, touching every object, watching every color, smelling, feeling the touch. I feel all the sensations, all the feelings, emotions that produce my senses. As I touch and feel every object, I recognize that all of it, every tree, every wall, every object that I am touching, are made of the unconditional love of the universe. But just it has been limited in different shapes. but even though they are still love. I get out of the house now, and I start to see all the sightseeings changing, trees, mountains, cities. I think about every person, family, friend, the population, cars, roads, buildings, houses. I see also the garbage, the fightings, the war. I see all the things equally, taking a deep breath, remembering that all those objects, all the things of the world, are unconditional love, fractalized in many shapes, experiencing the love in a limited way. But even though is love, recognize and take a deep breath. And I resound, vibrate high, activating this love that lives in everything. I am the real love. I am the real love. I am the real love. And I believe that I can feel it in all the things of this world. I believe. I believe. I believe. And I set my intention to live fully this third dimension, realizing that all the things, even the dark ones, are part of the real love. For all the life is a dream. Life is a lovely dream. Take a deep breath, expand yourself, and each one at its own time come back here and now. Thank you everybody for being here as always, and see you tomorrow at the same time.